Second half of November 1941. They are dragged from their homes in German and Austrian cities like Berlin, Munich, Frankfurt am Main, and Vienna. Together in thousands, unaware of what will happen to them, they are loaded into trains bound east. November 1941, the first of these trains arrive in the Baltics, Poland, and Belarus, foreshadowing a new chapter in the war against humanity. This is War Against Humanity, a sub-series of World War II in real time. I'm Spartacus Olsson. In the first weeks of November 1941, we saw how German gains in Ukraine and the Crimea worsens the already dire position of the ethnic Crimean Tatars, who now face increased hostilities from both belligerents. We also saw how the Nazis continued their genocidal mass murders in Eastern Europe. We saw massacres in Vilnius, Lviv, and in Rovno, where roughly 23,000 people were murdered in a mere 3 days. Death doled out by gun-wielding hands of men. In China, death is now coming from the skies, but not in the form of explosive bombs. Back in 1940, I told you about Unit 731, formerly known as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwantung Army, and led by Surgeon General Shiro Ishii. Since 1938, they have been working on developing methods of delivering biological agents behind enemy lines in an effort to weaken the enemy by spreading disease among the civilian population. They've tried out several different pathogens, and the development has included vivisection on live human test objects. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children deliberately infected with pathogens and then dissected while they were still alive, most often leading to their death. Experiments with bubonic plague alone has led to at least 10,000 deaths by 1941. In the past months, they have started to turn their research into operational attacks. In the summer of 1941, an expedition into Nanking was carried out to spread typhoid and paratyphoid germs into the wells, marshes, and houses of the city, as well as infusing pathogen into snacks and distributing them among the locals. The resulting outbreaks killed thousands. Now, in the autumn, they increase their activity and start using low-flying airplanes to deploy pathogens in at least 12 attacks on 11 cities. The number of casualties are hard to determine, as there is already so much naturally occurring disease raging through the famished, weakened populations. In one case, they drop cholera bacteria over Changde in the Hunan province and kill at least 10,000 Chinese civilians, but also 1,700 Japanese troops that had not been prepared to protect themselves. Now in November, they deploy another invention by Ishii, the flea bomb. They have used bathtubs to breed rats infected with bubonic plague and then bred fleas on the rats. The fleas, now infected with the Yersinia pestis bacteria that causes plague, have been harvested and placed in porcelain vials. In early November, these flea bombs are dropped over Changde. Outbreaks of bubonic plague now occur across the province and is soon spreading in person-to-person transmission. Ding De Wang, 8 years old at the time, will later testify that people died in hours or days, their bodies swollen and black. Those who came to their funerals often took the disease home with them. Ding's father dies in convulsions only 2 days after being exposed. Like I said, it's impossible to know exactly, but the Chinese records indicate that at least 270,000 civilians are killed in this way during the war. Thousands of kilometers to the west, in the Balkans, it is another disease that is killing: mutual ethnic hatred. Like we have seen before, the Ustaša of the independent state of Croatia, the NDH, are extremely brutal in the treatment of the Serb populations, with forced conversions from Orthodoxy to Catholicism, cramping thousands into concentration camps, torture, rape, and mass murder, literally by hand. In border regions between the NDH, German-occupied Serbia, and Italian-occupied Montenegro, predominantly Serb Chetnik fighters have now gained footholds. It is increasingly unclear who is in control of what, as in all parts of Yugoslavia, the ethnic groups in conflict with each other are also not separated by any clear borders. Theoretically, the NDH is independent, but in practice, the northern part is under German control and the southern part is under Italian control. Although the Chetnik movement, a militia set up on the remains of the Yugoslav army, has first been fighting both the Ustasha and the Axis occupiers, they have recently started to collaborate more and more with the Axis against the communist partisans. On November 29th, Jezdimir Danjik, a confidant of Chetnik leader Mihailovich, convinces a local Italian commander to allow him to take control over the town of Gorazde on the Drina River in southern part of the NDH. Once installed, Danjik makes a public speech saying that we cannot be together anymore, we and the Balia. Balia is a derogatory term to describe Muslim Balkans, but clear from the events that follow, he also means Croats. Chetniks now start pillaging, burning, raping, and killing all Croats and Muslims in the area that they can find. Many are thrown off a bridge into the Drina River to serve as a warning to everyone in the area. By January, at least 2050, more than 20% of the town's population will have been killed. To the north, the German anti-Jewish actions continue and take a new direction. A few months ago, I explained how the Nazi leaders were gradually beginning the removal of Jews from Germany and occupied Central and Western Europe. The original plans had been to wait for the fall of the Soviet Union and then deport all Jews east, far beyond the borders of the new German Third Reich. The delays in the German military advance changed these plans, and now 25 transports of Jews from German and Austrian cities are planned for November 1941. The destinations are Riga, Łódź, and Minsk, where the city commanders have long started emptying the ghettos by massacres in anticipation of receiving the Jews from the west. 5 transports are, however, redirected to Kaunas. They depart from Berlin, Munich, Frankfurt am Main, Vienna, and Breslau between November 15th and 24th. In Kaunas, Einsatzkommando 3, under the leadership of Karl Jäger, awaits them. Jäger now organizes the first murders of Jews deported from Germany. He reports, on the 25th, 1,159 male Jews, 1,600 female Jews, and 175 Jewish children from Berlin, Munich, and Frankfurt am Main are shot in Kaunas 9th Fort. On the 29th, 693 males, 1,155 females, and 152 children from Vienna and Breslau follow, 4,934 in total. The transports destined for Riga are met by the Einsatzgruppen directly under the newly appointed higher SS and police leader of the northern sector, Friedrich Wieke, who developed the methods of mass murders in Ukraine and organized Babi Yar and many other massacres. He has been transferred north by the head of the SS Sicherheitsdienst, Reinhard Heydrich, to carry out Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler's order that all Jews in the Ostland have to be destroyed to the last man. On November 30th and December 8th, Jeken's men, together with Einsatzkommando 2 under Rudolf Lange, killed 10,600 and 17,200 Jews from the Riga ghetto in the Rumbola forest just outside the city. The massacres are still being executed when the Riga-bound transports with German Jews arrive. Heinrich Himmler calls early on the 30th, ordering via Heydrich to not liquidate any of the Jews coming in from Berlin. His message comes too late, and many Berlin Jews are taken to the Rumbola forest straight from the trains and murdered. For reasons unknown, this upsets Himmler, who tells Jeken that the Jews resettled in the Ostland are to be dealt with only according to the guidelines given by me or the Reich Main Security Office acting on my behalf. I will punish unilateral acts and violations. It is unclear why Himmler does not protest the murder of Jews who arrive in Kaunas, but protests against the murders in Riga. One theory that has been proposed is that it is part of the forth and back in the final decisions between the planned deportation and exile to a new doctrine of deportation to murder centers, with the ultimate goal to murder every single Jew in Europe. Clear policy or not, the genocide of the Jews in the East is beyond begun. Now, the staggering numbers of Jews being killed during the past months might make it seem like they are a huge portion of the population. They are not. Overall in Europe, they make up less than 2% of the population, or 9.5 million people. There is a slightly higher concentration of Jews in many parts of Eastern Europe, but 3 to 4 million Jews in the Soviet Union means that the USSR has the European average of around 2%. While they are on average slightly better educated, for historical reasons more often employed in trade or academic work, they are not especially influential or involved in positions of power. To the contrary, almost everywhere they are ostracized and kept out of many parts of society. As we see here, when their neighbors turn on them, blaming them for 2 decades of suffering inflicted by the Soviets, they are constantly scapegoated for imagined or real offenses inflicted by other groups. Now, consider that the Einsatzgruppen and their auxiliary units have killed more than 1 million Jews in the USSR by the end of this year. Another 1 million have fled or been evacuated further east. Yet more were living further east beyond reach or are part of the Red Army. That means that between 1/4 and 1/3 of all the Jews in the USSR have already been killed, likely more than half of the Jews still present when Axis occupation begins. The remainder, still hundreds of thousands, are now locked up in a ghetto or deported to a camp. Take Odessa, for example, where we have seen over 30,000 Jews murdered in a few days following the Axis occupation. Now, this month, at least the same numbers deported to camps such as Bogdanovka in the Romanian-controlled Transnistria. The same fate befalls many Bukovinian and Bessarabian Jews from cities like Chernivtsi. In October and November 1941, close to 55,000 of them are forced to march through the mud and cold across the Dniester into Transnistria, the area between the Bug and Dniester rivers. This gives Governor Konstantin Vyacheslav the confidence to state that he has completely cleansed Bessarabia of Jews. In reality, some 20,000 Jewish Bukovinians remain in Chernivtsi after its mayor makes a deal with Romanian conductor Ion Antonescu to keep them there in the interest of economic stability. Those who purchase or are given a worker's permit are used in forced labor, which might be a better fate than what awaits those deported into Transnistria. Soon after the invasion of Ukraine, Einsatzgruppe D made its way through Transnistria, shooting thousands of Jews as they passed. After they leave, the Romanian governors turn the area into a place to dispose of their Jews, also expecting to move all Jews further east following the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Romanians set up 175 provisional camps and ghettos there. They aren't expected to serve as a permanent solution, so pretty much no arrangements are made to make these places suitable for living. Many are little more than ruins left over by the Axis advance. The buildings have large holes in them or are missing complete walls. Most lack proper sanitation, let alone heating or isolation. The camps are arguably worse, usually built on old farmlands, with the only shelter being the stables that were previously used to house cattle. When the German advance stalls and the German authorities refuse to grant Romania's Jews passage over the Bug River, these camps and ghettos become the permanent residencies of tens of thousands of Jews. So, in the autumn of 1941, Transnistria transforms into a de facto prisoner state where Romania can store its unwanted people on foreign soil. Most infamous may be the ghetto of Bogdanovka. It isn't more than a series of pigsties on what used to be a collective farm. Estimates of the number of detained Jews there range from 40,000 to well over 55,000. Collectively, they try to survive in living conditions that go beyond anyone's imagination. Water and food is scarce, temperatures are dropping below zero, but there is no shelter or heating. In the overcrowded stables, an epidemic of typhus soon breaks out. A great many die the agonizing and slow deaths of starvation, gradual hypothermia, and disease. I'm going to end today with a poem by Alexander Kimmel, a survivor of the Holocaust who died peacefully of old age at 91 only 2 years ago in 2018. The action in the ghetto of Rohatyn, March 1942. Do I want to remember the peaceful ghetto before the raid? Children shaking like leaves in the wind, mothers searching for a piece of bread, shadows on swollen legs moving with fear. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? Do I want to remember the creation of hell, the shouts of the raiders enjoying the hunt, cries of the wounded begging for life, faces of mothers carved with pain, hiding children dripping with fear. No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? Do I want to remember my fearful return, families vanished in the midst of the day, the mass graves steaming with vapor of blood, mothers searching for children in vain, the pain of the ghetto cuts like a knife? No, I don't want to remember, but how can I forget? Do I want to remember the wailing of the night, the doors kicked ajar, ripped feathers floating in the air, the night scented with snow-melting blood, while the compassionate moon is showing the way for the faceless shadows searching for kin? No, I don't want to remember, but I cannot forget. Do I want to remember this world upside down where the departed are blessed with an instant death while the living condemned to a short, wretched life and a long, tortuous journey into unnamed place, converting living souls into ashes and gas? No, I have to remember and never let you forget.